Welcome back to the OHIO podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Buckeye Boggs. That man over there is JR in the know. And guys, we're going to talk a little basketball. I know. A lot of you are like, hey, I thought this was an Ohio State football podcast. And it is. But JR, it's March. And that means it's time for March Madness. And if Chris Holtmann was still the head coach, it wouldn't matter. But since he's not anymore and Jake Diebler is the head coach, Ohio State has still got a little bit of a chance. We're not dead yet. We're not. You know, it's kind of like that video in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Bring out your dead. And they bring out the one guy and they throw him on the pile. I'm not dead. And you're mostly dead. And bam, hits him on the head. That's what I feel like Ohio State's at right now. Like, we've been on that wagon for a while. And we're like, we're not dead yet. Jake Diebler's like, we got a pulse. Let's keep winning. Question one. How does Ohio State get into the NCAA tournament without winning the Big Ten tournament championship? Obviously, that's an auto bid if you win it. Can we somehow still get in and not win the Big Ten championship?
Yeah, I'm not a bracketologist. I wish I was. There are people out there that I don't know how they do it, but they do really good work. But from what I've been reading and kind of looking at online, it looks like Ohio State needs to win this final game against Rutgers, which, you know, if you've not been paying attention to Big Ten basketball, Rutgers is a better team than their record indicates because they got one of their best players back halfway through the season in Jeremiah Williams, who actually makes the offense, like, watchable. It's because that offense was terrible without him. But they have him back, so they need to win that one on the road at Rutgers, which won't be an easy place to play. So that game is definitely in question. And then I think they probably need to win 2 games in the Big Ten tournament. I think they need to win their first game, whoever they play, and then they probably need to win whoever's their second game, whether that be a Nebraska or an Illinois or whatever. I think nobody wants to play Illinois right now. Illinois is a really good team, and they're playing Purdue. And I don't know the results of that game yet. I'm sure it'll be over by the time.
They were winning at halftime when we started recording before this. So,
but yeah, they're both. I mean, both Illinois and Purdue are really good teams. So you kind of hope that you get like the 3 or the 4 seed. So you play either Northwestern, Wisconsin, or Nebraska, because I think all those teams are beatable for Ohio State. But I think if you win 2 games in the Big Ten tournament, from everything I'm reading, it sounds like they'll be in. Just based on like the quad 1 stuff and how that goes. So we'll see. It's definitely doable. I don't want to get my hopes up too much because, you know, I've been hurt before. I don't want to get hurt again. But, you know, it's at least nice to play meaningful games in March. And at the very least, we'll still be watching this team in the NIT.
So they are 4-1 since Jake Diebler took over. And you're telling me if they go 7-1 and then lose in the quarterfinals, they're in. They're at least a bubble team.
I think so. Yeah.
You know,
they were the first 5 out the other day when I looked. So
okay. I mean, like I said,
not being in the first 5.
Bring out your dead. We're not dead. You're mostly dead. Not yet. That's where we're at, JR.
Yeah,
that's where we're at. I love it. All right. Okay. If Jake Diebler were to do this, if he were to somehow get this team that was literally looking at its carcass from the ceiling as the soul left the body, and he puts on the little defibrillator things and brings us back to life and gets us to the NCAA tournament, is he the head coach moving forward?
I don't think so. And I say that a bit reluctantly because I do love Jake Diebler. And I've loved him before he be the coach because, like, he's done some interviews and stuff. And, like, the dude is just magnetic. And he has a really great relationship with these players. And that's kind of what you heard the whole time is that, like, yes, these players like Chris Holtmann, but these players love Jake Diebler. And they just think that he is, like, a dude that really knows them well. I mean, and obviously you can tell through the games, like he's playing the right players and putting in good lineups, even when it's kind of questionable. But I mean, the guy knows his stuff and he knows his players, so you can't really argue with him. But no, I think, and I said this at the beginning, so I kind of go with what I said at the beginning, so that way I don't get too caught up in it. if Jake Diebler wants this job and is going to get it, I feel like he has to make it to the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament. And that seems like a big ask, but at the same time, like, let's remember that head coach, basketball coach is a lot more than just coaching games nowadays. It's getting the NIL, working with the boosters. You have to have people who believe in you. And I think if he is able to do what Chris Holtmann was never able to do, then that will get people to believe in him and kind of side with him and say, this guy can make this happen and he can take us where we need to go.
You bring up a really good question. I'm just thinking out loud now. I wasn't even planning on talking this. Who are the boosters at Ohio State who invest in the basketball program, and how invested are they in Ohio high school basketball? Because if they were, Diebler's their dude. That is a basketball family that name resonates with Ohio high school basketball. Of course, his older brother is the all-time three-point leading shooter at Ohio State. His dad is a legendary high school basketball coach. I don't know, JR. I just feel like, is it wrong for me to root for him and want him to be the guy? Like,
no, of course not.
I'm not sold on all these names that we're about to talk about. And the one I am is one that no one wants. Because he, again, is basically an older version of Jake Diebler that no one's heard of, but has amazing results. But I digress. Let's talk about the names. Who are the names that everybody's bringing up that are legitimate options? I'm not talking about, some of the names people are bringing up are just never going to happen. But who are the legitimate people that you could see maybe come to Ohio State if Diebler's not chosen?
Yeah, so let's start with two of the guys that I don't think are legitimate that have been brought up. And I think it's because they're not. I don't think it's because, like, they don't want to come to Ohio State. I think that they just want to keep doing what they're doing, which is Jay Wright and Greg McDermott. So I don't want to go into a ton of detail, but, like, essentially both those guys, apparently Ohio State reached out to them and they both said, thank you for your consideration. Maybe at some point in my life. However, I'm happy right now. In Jay Wright's case, he said at some point in my life, maybe, but not right now, which leads me to believe, like, man, what if we got him instead of Chris Holtmann 7 years ago? Anyway, but that would have been a whole lot better, right? And then Greg McDermott, sounds like he's happy at Creighton right now and he just wants to stick around there, which I can't fault the guy. If you got something you love and, anyway. The names that do seem to be likely are Dusty May has come up lately. Apparently, this is the guy that LeBron James is backing. And
Florida Atlantic, right?
Yeah. And they made it to the Final Four last year. They're having a good season this year, but it's not the same as last year. He could go on a tournament run again. We'll see. But it's definitely not the same this year as it was last year.
I like him, but there's a problem with him.
Indiana.
He's a Hoosier, dude.
Yeah. So I guess Steve Hellwagon was talking about it a little bit, and he was saying that, like, if Ohio State really wanted to, they could do some fancy work with the contract to where it's like a really big buyout. So that way, if Indiana does come after him, it's almost like, they would have too big of a buyout to really go after him. But then again, you're in another situation where, like with Chris Holtmann, you have a really big buyout. And it's like, if he stinks, like, you can't fire him then.
Yeah, so, when you say big buyout, my heart was like,
Yeah, well, we know Ross Bjork loves himself some buyouts.
Yes, he does. That's his language. That's his love language is what I heard was buyout.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. I'm not really sold on Dusty May. I think he would be a good option. However, at this point, I kind of want Jake Diebler over him. Personally, me. Jake Diebler, another name. We kind of talked about him. Another one is Lamont Paris down in South Carolina. He's fine. I don't really like him just because he comes from that Wisconsin brand of basketball, the kind of Greg Gard coaching tree. And when Greg Gard is, when his fans are kind of vying for him to be fired, I'm like, well, I don't know if we want to get an apprentice of him.
I know.
Ohio State.
I know the South Carolina people don't like us sniffing around like that, which is usually a good sign. But I don't know, JR. Like, I might want May before him.
I would probably want May before him as well. Yeah, he's really only had one good season at South Carolina. He did well at Chattanooga, but not the same level that Dusty May did. well. And I think the SEC's down a little bit this year. I don't think some of the teams are quite as good. And it just so happened that right after we fired Chris Holtmann, he went on a 2-game losing streak, and Jake Diebler beat Purdue. So it's like, well, maybe this Jake Diebler guy's a better option. So, but the guy I'm excited about, and apparently nobody else is, which, like, to each their own, whatever. I want him to be the coach more than anybody else, is Sean Miller from Xavier. I want him.
No,
so bad.
JR. Why?
Yes.
Why?
Eric, there is no dirtier sport than college basketball. So I want the dirtiest, slimiest guy to be fighting for the team.
Then let's go get Rick Pitino.
Well, okay.
I mean, if you're gonna be slimy,
not that dirty. I don't want prostitutes with recruits, but anyway, which I don't even know if that story. Yeah, I just heard that story, whatever. Don't come after me, Rick Pitino, or anything. But no, I think Sean Miller did a good job at Arizona. He didn't have the success that I think some people felt he could. However, he only lost to a seed that was worse than him twice, which was an 11 Xavier seed and a number 2 Wisconsin seed when he was a number 1 seed. So it's like, and they lost by 1 point in that game. So it's like, I think that was Frank Kaminsky, Wisconsin, and stuff like that. So, I mean, at the end of the day, he made multiple Elite 8s. He won multiple Pac-12 championships there, which, we can argue about how good the Pac-12 was. I think it was better back then than it is right now. But I look around and I say, if we're going to hire a guy from a lower level school like a Xavier or something like that, I'd much rather have Sean Miller than, some of these other guys. But that's just me. Any other names that you know about, Eric?
I really like this guy. I don't think he's got a prayer. He's from your neck of the woods, man. Josh Schertz, Indiana State. Dude wins everywhere he's gone.
If he bring Robbie Avelia with him.
Listen. Oh, that dude. Listen. Listen to my comparison. Hear me out. He is the Jim Tressel of college basketball, waiting to happen. Waiting to happen. Small school, won multiple national championships, has worked his way up. In Indiana State, a place that hasn't been good since Larry Bird was there, and is going to be an NCAA tournament team. I think the guy is magic. To me, he's the older version, in my opinion, of Jake Diebler.
I like him. Don't get me wrong. I kind of am with you. I've not really heard his name all that much, so I don't know how much of a chance he really has. But at the end of the day, like, if they hired him, I'd be like, all right, let's ride and let's see what this experience gives us. As long as he doesn't have a super big buyout, so we can fire him if we need to.
Well, first off, I would love to know what the buyout is for him at Indiana State. Is it like a gift card to Cracker Barrel or something? Like,
yeah, I'll have to check my Indiana State sources and
I mean,
check that out. I'm just kidding.
There's no way that buyout's big. There's no way.
No.
And the fact that he is doing what he is doing at a school that hasn't done it since before you were born, buddy, is incredible. I just think and his name did come up on Columbus radio for the first time this past weekend. I heard it. Someone else.
97.1.
Yeah. Someone else mentioned his name finally. And I was like, okay, someone else has picked up on this. I've been preaching this guy's name ever since Holtmann, before Holtmann was even fired, because I just felt like this guy is it. He's got it. Someone is going to grab him in a Power 5, and that team is going to go on a run. You watch. Yeah. If it's not us, it's going to be someone. And don't be surprised if May isn't chosen by Indiana, if they do fire their coach, that they might go knocking on his door. Just saying. Although Indiana thinks they're still like Ohio State football in the basketball world, and they're just not. They haven't been relevant since Knight.
Yeah.
In all honesty.
Crean won a couple Big Ten championships, but you're right, not on the same level.
Not at that level, though, where it's every year you're competing to be a number one seed,
Right.
like they were back in the day. So I don't know. Interesting stuff. I'm rooting for Diebler. Good stuff. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. We really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed this basketball talk, let us know in the comment section who you would like to see as the next head coach of Ohio State basketball. Is it Jake Diebler? Is it one of the guys we mentioned? Is it somebody we didn't mention that you feel like needs to get some attention? Let us know in the comments section below. And by the way, since we are talking basketball real fast, congratulations to the Ohio State women on winning the regular season Big Ten championship and are the number one seed in the Big Ten tournament, which starts this week. So make sure you check them out. Ohio State plays at 12 noon on Friday against the winner of the 8th seed Maryland and the 9th seed Indiana. No, Illinois, 9th seed Illinois.
Yeah.
Are you impressed? I knew that off the top of my head.
I knew it wasn't Indiana. I didn't know off the top of my head who it was, but I knew it wasn't Indiana because they're third in the.
They're the 3rd seed. Yeah, which means that when it gets to the Final Four, and hopefully Ohio State's playing some cupcake, and Indiana and Iowa are playing each other to play eventual Ohio State in the championship game, that is going to be must-see TV, brother. Big Ten women's basketball is legit. It's legit.
I need Ohio State to face Iowa again, so that way the final time they faced them wasn't that crappy rigged game where the officials were giving literally every little thing to. That was ridiculous.
Yeah, that was bad. All right, guys. Till next time. OH.
Ayo.
Go Bucks.